Hey guys, what's up? It's Dr. J, one half of the duo that makes up Twin Doctors TV. Dr. I is not here today, so you and we're going to be talking about herpes. Now, we're talking about herpes really for two reasons. Number one, herpes is super common, and so people always have questions about herpes. Number two, this is a great time to talk about herpes and to broach some of those common questions that we get about it because herpes is in the news. Herpes is in the news because singer Usher has been accused by a number of women of giving them herpes. These women are basically saying that they had unprotected sex with Usher. He didn't disclose that he had herpes before they engaged in sexual activity, and they've now contracted the virus. So that's why we're talking about herpes, and I'm going to tell you everything you ever wanted to know about herpes, trust me. But let me first say this, and this is something that I tell my patients all of the time, and this is something that I'm going to tell you now. 1 in 3 Americans, 33% of Americans right now have at least one active sexually transmitted disease, okay? And so I tell all of my patients, protect yourself. 1 in 3 people have an active sexually transmitted disease. Some of them may tell you they have it if they know. Some of them, most of them, probably will not. Okay, I'm off of my soapbox. Now, what is herpes? Or more importantly, what is genital herpes? Because that's what people really want to know. So genital herpes is caused by a virus called the herpes simplex virus, HSV. There are 2 strains of the HSV virus, HSV1, herpes simplex virus 1, and HSV2, herpes simplex virus 2. Majority of the time, if someone has genital herpes, it's caused by HSV2 or the herpes simplex virus 2. However, herpes simplex virus 1, which is what typically causes cold sores, can also cause genital herpes. Now, this is important, and I'm about to tell you why. If you look at the statistics, about 1 in 5, 1 in 6, maybe 15–20% of people have actual genital herpes. So they have herpes of the anus, the penis, or the rectum. But when you look at the entire population, 90% of people have herpes. Now, the majority of these people have herpes of the mouth. They have cold sores. However, like I said, HSV1 can cause genital herpes. And so, in reality, 90% of people out there, 9 in 10 people can theoretically give you genital herpes because both HSV1 and HSV2 can cause genital herpes. Now, if you have sex with someone who's got genital herpes, obviously you can get genital herpes just because your genitals are in contact with their genitals, and you basically transmit the virus that way. However, if you have oral sex with someone who's got oral herpes, cold sores, you can still get genital herpes because their mouth that has the herpes infection has come in contact with your genitals. So in theory, 90% of people can give you genital herpes. That's something people need to keep in mind. Now, I think one thing that I hear a lot from patients, and one thing that tends to confuse a lot of patients, is they say, A, can I be cured of herpes? And B, it seems like I had it, but I don't have it anymore. I had an outbreak once, but I haven't had an outbreak in years, so I still have the virus. Unfortunately, there is no cure for herpes to date. You'll hear a lot of people say a lot of nonsense. I promise you, medical science isn't hiding anything from anyone. There's no cure to date, okay? Number 2, once you have herpes, you always have herpes, unfortunately. What happens, though, is this. The herpes virus is in the same family of viruses as the chickenpox virus, and they're actually very weak viruses. And so what happens is actually kind of interesting. They cause their initial infection. So you get your initial chickenpox outbreak, or you get your initial oral herpes outbreak, your cold sores, or you get your initial genital herpes outbreak. Then your immune system says, oh, there's a virus, I got to get rid of it. The herpes virus knows it's weak. It says, we better run. And so the herpes virus will run and hide from the immune system in nerves. And in particular, the herpes virus tends to hide in what are called dorsal root ganglia, which are parts of the nerves very close to the spinal cord. And it just sits there lying in wait. And then your immune system's walking all around looking tough like, oh, okay, herpes is gone. However, herpes is smart. Your immune system will be compromised from time to time. Physical stress, emotional stress, for women, pregnancy, for women, again, menstrual cycles can all compromise your immune system. And when your immune system's just a little bit weak, herpes is like, oh, the immune system's weak, herpes comes out. And so that's when you get these outbreaks. And so people will have their initial herpes infection, then they haven't had an outbreak or any type of signs or symptoms of it for years, and they think they don't have it. No, it's still in your body. It will always be in your body. It's just lying in wait. It's very similar to chickenpox. You know, most of us get chickenpox when we're children, and then we don't think about it again for 30, 40, 50 years, and then we're older, our immune systems are compromised, and we get shingles. Shingles is basically chickenpox reactivating itself. Herpes does the same thing. Once it's in your body, it's always in your body, it's lying, it's waiting, and it will pounce when your immune system is compromised. So how can you avoid getting herpes? Well, number 1, always use condoms when you're sexually active, especially if it's kind of a loose dalliance or a fling. Number two, and again, using condoms will not protect against all STDs all of the time, but it will protect against most STDs most of the time. So always use condoms. That's number one. Number two, if you're intimate with someone who you know has herpes and they have an outbreak, be it an oral outbreak or a genital outbreak, no sex at all. The risk of transmission at that point is very high. Number three, if you're with someone who you know has genital or oral herpes for that matter, and they're not having an outbreak, still consider using condoms, A, and B, talk to them about using what we call prophylaxis. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute. But there are a couple of medications that we'll typically use for prophylaxis. The two most common ones are acyclovir and Valtrex. And we use these medications to basically decrease the likelihood that you're going to get recurrences of the infection. And that's important because if you decrease the likelihood of recurrence, or if you decrease the number of recurrences, you decrease the likelihood that you're going to transmit it to your partner. But secondly, using these medications has been found to decrease the likelihood that you will transmit the infection to your partner even if you don't have a recurrence. And that's super important, and I'm going to tell you why. 4% of men who test positive, 10% of men who have genital herpes will pass the viral infection on to their partner if they're sexually active with them, even if they don't have an outbreak going on. So 10% of the time, if you have sex with somebody who's got herpes, even if they don't have an outbreak, they can give it to you if they're a male. For women, only about 4% of women who are not having an active outbreak will still pass the viral infection on to a partner if they have unprotected sex. So basically, prevention comes down to condoms, 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 avoidance of sexual activity if you know you're with someone who's got herpes and they have an outbreak, and encouraging your partner, if they have herpes, to use prophylactic medications on a daily basis like acyclovir or Valtrex. So that's basically herpes in a nutshell. Very common infection. It's got a stigma attached to it because people, A, say it's a sexually transmitted disease, so there's always a stigma, and B, they say it's something that can be cured, so there's a stigma there. But when you look at the herpes virus, like I said, remember 90% of people have it. Okay, so majority of people have it. It's just the oral infection for most people. But it can be prevented, and thankfully it can be treated. So hopefully this answered some of your questions. As always, if you have questions, send them to us at www.twindoctorstv.com. Also check out www.twindoctorstv.com. We have lots of great information. As always, I'm Dr. J. That would be Dr. I, but he's MIA. We're the Twin Doctors. Stay healthy, guys.
Twin Doctors TV. Educate, inspire, entertain. Follow us at www.twindoctorstv.com and on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Stay healthy. Bye now.